Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce Mr. Herb Kelleher, the Executive Chairman of the Board of Southwest Airlines. Mr. Kelleher is a founder of Southwest Airlines and currently serves as its Executive Chairman, a position he has held since 1978. From 1981 through 2001, he also served as President and CEO of the airline. Southwest Airlines has been profitable for 35 consecutive years and has never furloughed an employee. In 2007, Fortune magazine listed Southwest as number 5 in America's top 10 admired corporations. Mr. Kelleher is a graduate of Wesleyan University and of NYU Law School. He is an avid reader and hunter in his free time. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Herb Kelleher.
Keep clapping.
Good morning, everyone. As Notre Dame students, we look to current and past business leaders to help us become the leaders of tomorrow. Today, we are honored to have a speaker whose experience and background will highlight what it means to be an effective and well-respected business leader. Our speaker served as president of Southwest Airlines from 2001 to July of this year. Prior to that, she served in a variety of positions within Southwest, including Executive Vice President of Customers, Vice President of Administration, and she also served as Corporate Secretary from 1978 to July of this year. She was named one of the world's 100 most powerful women by Forbes.com in 2004 and again in 2005. Currently, she is President Emeritus of Southwest Airlines, serves on the Board of Directors for JCPenney Company, and on the Board of Trustees for Becker College, just to name a few. In her leisure time, she enjoys traveling with friends. Please join me in welcoming Colleen Barrett.
I want to start off by telling you that I am a hands-on guy who pays attention to detail. When I got here, the dean was gracious enough to host me in the dean's office, and I immediately granted 2 students permission to study abroad next year. Now, I got the countries wrong, but that's okay. They'll have to adapt. I gave one permission to study in Spain. She wanted to go to London. Just a trifle. I can't tell you how delighted we are, Colleen and myself, to be with you today. Are we going to beat Michigan tomorrow? Had a feeling we might. It's going to be a tight one, though, according to the odds makers, to be on this hallowed campus, really. And I congratulate you upon the status of the undergraduate business school. I think that's a magnificent accomplishment, being ranked 3rd in the nation. And I think we ought to give our faculty leaders a round of applause for having such a magnificent achievement. I wanted to talk to you for just a moment about the entrepreneurial urge, you might call it. Because I hope that some of the people in the audience are intent upon starting their own businesses, whatever they might be. And I don't think there's anything that's more creative in the business world than starting a company. I've been involved in 3, really 4 thus far, and always had a great desire to help to put something together. Now, I didn't know that the consequence of that, as far as Southwest Airlines, would be guys like these in the second row, Captain Alex Pongio and his wife Diane, and Captain Frank Wright and his wife Gail. I didn't know that those 2 were going to join us, or I probably would have stopped. Stand up, gang. These are marvelous people that have done a fantastic job at Southwest Airlines and shown the kind of dedication and leadership and energy and direction that any company needs in order to become a success. When Southwest Airlines started out, we saw a huge need in Texas for better air service. Because of monopolies, with respect to air service between the big cities and from the small cities to the big cities, created by the federal government under the Civil Aeronautics Board. The service in Texas was terrible. The quality of it was awful. The on-time performance really stunk up the joint. And the fares were exceedingly high, which is what you would expect from a non-competitive situation in the state of Texas. And the first point that I like to make in connection with starting something is that there was a real need for what we were going to do. And I distinguish that when I'm talking to young potential entrepreneurs. I distinguish that from people who tell me, well, you know, I found something I like to do, or I found something I'm comfortable doing. And I tell them, I said, you know, that's irrelevant. It's not how you feel. It's how the public's going to feel about what you're offering the public. And so finding a real need, I think, is key. And secondly, you know, entrepreneurs are by nature optimists. If they weren't optimists, they wouldn't be entrepreneurs. I mean, you don't do that kind of thing unless you think you're going to succeed. And you often have very high hopes and perhaps unrealistic hopes of how quickly that's going to happen. And so I think another thing that's essential is to take the amount of capital that you think you're going to need in order to get on a firm financial footing and quintuple it. And even then, you'll probably fall a little short of where you ought to be. Southwest Airlines had 4.5 years of litigation before we could fly our first flight with the other carriers. They weren't too happy about having us threaten to show up on the scene. We spent all of our money. The board of directors wanted to close the company down because all we'd done was litigate for 3 years. And I broke the code of the American Bar Association by volunteering to work for free. And they threatened to expel me. But I did for the next 2 years to keep Southwest Airlines going. And that's another point that I wanted to make in connection with being an entrepreneur. You've got to be self-confident. You've got to really be dedicated. And you've got to be persistent. My law firm in San Antonio kind of specialized in helping companies get started. And one of the things that we most frequently saw as a failure in a budding entrepreneur was someone who had a terrific idea. And it really was a great idea. But they didn't realize that a lot of sweat equity had to go in to make it as successful. Because somehow they were under the naive misapprehension that if you had a good idea, it would suddenly communicate itself to the rest of the United States. People would voluntarily come flocking to your doors, and gold coins would start raining down on you from heaven, which is not the case, of course. There's an awful lot of work that goes into it. You have to learn to be lonely. That's another thing I wanted to mention to you, because most people are not enthusiastic about change. And that's been the history of humankind since its beginning. You know, if you walk up to 99.9% of the people in the world, you say, you want to change? Oh, no! Don't mention change to me. It makes me uneasy. It makes me nervous. Well, of course, when you're an entrepreneur, you're planning to change things. You're bucking the established way. And you'll find that most of the people are, you know, very skeptical, maybe even cynical, maybe even condemnatory of what you're proposing. What's my point? I don't know. I've forgotten. You know, I'm old. But but my point is that you have to be self-confident about what you're doing. I don't mean arrogant. Don't misunderstand me. But I mean self-confident, where you can buck the common opinion. 99.9% of the people in the state of Texas thought that I was wasting my time working on Southwest Airlines, that it was sort of like a playground game that I loved a lot, but would never materialize in anything that was significant. And obviously that was not the case, but you have to know that you're going to go through that sort of thing. Southwest Airlines was completely different from all the other airlines. Ooh, boy, that's bad, right? Dare to be different? Lose your underwear. But we had to resist that as well. During the 1980s, after deregulation, and Colleen will remember this very well indeed, we were constantly told, okay, the interstate federal industry has been deregulated. Now you can fly any place you want to domestically, charge whatever you think you ought to charge, and it's a whole new world. And they'd say, Herb, you got to be like United or American or TWA or Eastern, the carriers that had been around for a long, long time. And we fought like crazy with the financial community, with the airline analysts, and even with some people within Southwest Airlines, relatively few, because conformity was what they were interested in, and they thought there was safety in doing that. And it's the other way around. If something's conventional, it's not wisdom. And if it's wisdom, it's not conventional. And so we beat a different track from the rest of the industry. And along the way, it turned into a great social crusade for our employees and for the American people as well. That puts some extra mustard in what you're doing. When I started working on Southwest Airlines in the fall of 1966, that wasn't a different century, I realize, only about 15% of adults in the United States had ever flown on a single commercial airline flight. About 15%. When Southwest Airlines got going, within a relatively short period of time, once we were unleashed in 1978 by deregulation, it was 85% in the United States. In other words, we set the people of America free to fly. And believe me, they like it. Instead of being tucked into a back of a station wagon to go from the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas to MD Anderson Clinic in Houston and driving for 6 hours, you hopped on a Southwest Airlines airplane, which took 45 minutes and cost you less money. Grandmothers could go see their grandsons graduate from San Diego Naval Training Station, as an example. Divorced parents that lived in different cities could see their children a lot more often because they were paying $15 or $25 to fly instead of $250. And so it had a remarkable effect upon American life, and I think our people were inspired by that because they realized that they were doing well by doing good for others. And that's the kind of thing that keeps you motivated and keeps you dedicated. And the Department of Transportation did a study in the mid-1990s that said that Southwest Airlines was responsible for the growth in passengers from 15 to 85% of the American public. That Southwest Airlines was responsible for 90% of all the low-fare competition in the United States of America. And they gave it a name. They call it the Southwest Effect. And it's funny because it's difficult for people who deal with other businesses to comprehend the magnitude of the change that we're talking about. When I was in Philadelphia, we were opening Philadelphia, and I was speaking to a business group, and I was talking about the fact that when Southwest comes in, you have this liberating effect. All of a sudden, the traffic is enormously stimulated. People are flying that never flew before or flew much. And a guy in the audience said, well, what are you talking about, Mo? At 5, 6, 7%? And I said, no, I'm really talking about maybe 800 to 1,000% in the first year we're here. And he almost fell over. He almost fell over. We go into a new market and increase the traffic in 1 year, in many cases, by 500%, 600%, 1,000%. One case in a small market by 2,000% in 12 months. That's setting America free. And that's why our signature line is, we give you the freedom to fly. A symbol of freedom. And one of the things that we realized quickly was, in addition to providing new airplanes, better on-time performance, really the highest quality whiskey, and a few other things that are very important to being successful in the entrepreneurial field, we decided, I think more out of a moral approach than anything else, it wasn't a business decision, that you ought to treat your employees well. Your first concern should be for their security of their jobs and their families. And it turned out that that was a powerful spiritual overlay. I mean, when you think about it, the word value, it usually means, something that's pretty good at a reasonable price. But we went beyond that with our people, because you had a reasonable price, you had a very high quality product that was infused with the spirit of welcome, of warmth, of hospitality. Now that's powerful. Let's see. They fly me in better airplanes. They get me there on time. They charge less. And they like to see me. Wow! Isn't that a devastating thought? But anyhow, before Colleen comes on, and she's really the guru of employee relations and customer relations in America, highest ranking woman in the history of the American airline industry. She has always been a person who is burns with a pure blue flame. I guess you would say like natural gas. Not that she's gassy, but but she's pure in her devotion to ethics, to morality, and to making life better for other people. I frequently referred to as the Irish martyr syndrome, and we're both Irish, so we both have it. And I have a feeling there might be some Irish people in the audience, just a guess. But in any event, we were sitting around one day, and this is typical of companies. What do you depend on for your profitability, your job security, your overall success? Guess what? It's customers. And we printed on our checks, when you still had checks, from our customers. So when employees got their paychecks, they knew it was not coming from me. It wasn't coming from Colleen. It was coming from our customers and how we treated them. But we were seated around, big table, discussing some procedural items that pertain to operations. And all of a sudden it hit me, everybody there, you okay?
Yeah.
She always regurgitates when she listens to me talk. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just 41 years of repetition. But it suddenly struck me that everybody there was discussing this operational issue from the internal standpoint. I mean, how does it suit my convenience and maintenance? How does it make life easier for flight operations? And it was like a bolt from above. And I said, you know who's not a participant in all this? The most important people of all. Our customers. Our passengers. Everybody in every department should be working together to satisfy them, not their own internal convenience. And that is how Colleen became the Executive Vice President of Customers for Southwest Airlines. And she is the best thing that happened to Southwest Airlines. And I'll tell you another thing. If you're really interested in culture, can I have another 30 seconds?
I guess.
You won't be angry? Oh, she will be angry, but she's not going to show it. That means I'll experience the pain later. But if you're talking about culture, use that all-encompassing word in your company, and if you keep mouthing that you think it's important, and you don't have somebody important in charge of it, you're a hypocrite, you're a liar. Because in order to create a culture of love, of care, of concern for each other, you have to be able to intervene in the affairs of all departments within the company. And you can't have someone, we're not big on hierarchy. As a matter of fact, I hate it. I don't understand it. I never looked at our organization manual because it's too complex for me. But anyhow, you have to make it true everywhere, in maintenance, flight ops, in the stations around the system. Because if it's not true everywhere, then it's not true anywhere. And people will say, you're a hypocrite. You don't really mean what you say. And that's why you need someone of Colleen's stature as executive vice president and later president. So they can just go over there and say, you're treating your people wrong. We're going to change that. We need new leadership. We need a new approach to our people in your section, in your division. And if somebody takes somebody in their corporation and says, boy, we're into culture. We're really for it. My heart is involved in it. And they give it to the fourth assistant vice president of accounting, they're not telling the truth. So here is our guru, Colleen Barrett, with whom I've worked for 41 years, I think. And
why I'm white.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. There's one thing she was lacking, and that was the capacity to organize things, to administer things. And so I had to take her under my wing and show her how to do that. And it was tough while I was looking for my car, my watch, my car keys, and a few other things. The First Lady of Culture in American business, Kelleher and Colleen Barrett.
I don't need this. You know, Herb said, I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship. You talk about people. So he's told you all about our people. He's told you all about our culture. So, in typical Herb Kelleher fashion, he's told the story. But Herb introduced our Southwest family to you, and they are my family as well, my extended family members. I have my real family, my personal family here, one of whom is a sophomore at Notre Dame this year. And so I would like them to stand, and I think you'll see a similarity in all of them, in their faces. So, yeah, except for Miss Jenny, who's very present. Southwest is a company of people. It's not a company of airplanes. It is a company that has a few brilliant, visionary leaders. But basically and simply, Southwest is a family, 34,000 strong, who really believe that Southwest is, for them, a cause. And Herb talked about that cause, and it might sound a little self-serving when he tells you statistics like 15% of adults flew, only 15% of adults flew before we started, and now, you know, a few years later, 85% flew. But I want to explain to you in our hearts and in our heads what that means. It doesn't mean that the people that increased, that every single one of them was on us. What it means is that because we introduced the concept of two-tier pricing, which was not in existence at Southwest. We introduced the thought to people that they could fly just for fun if the price was right. If you stop and think about it, and I don't know how many people here are from Texas, and I'm not, so I can make a lot of fun about it, even though I've lived there for 41 years. But, you know, in Texas, everybody thinks that they're bigger and better than everyone else, okay? And honestly, in 1971, when we put our first airplane into the air, ladies, women weren't flying. Women were not flying. I mean, they might fly once in a while for a wedding or a funeral, but they were not on airplanes like we are today. And we started, might sound horribly offensive today, but we were basically selling sex. I mean, and I don't mean literally, I mean figuratively, but we had girls in hot pants. We had girls in go-go boots. We had a flair, and it goes right back to what Herb said. We had no money. We had no money. We couldn't run. We couldn't afford to put full-page ads in the newspaper. So we had to do it with spunk and spirit. And our ads for our first flight attendant group asked for Raquel Welch lookalikes. Now, half of you are probably too young to even know who Raquel Welch was, but my point really is that very ad caused a certain personality to come to Southwest to begin with. And that is what created our fun, kind of a little irreverent, a little maverickish attitude. And then you had Bozo over here, who never slept, lived on wild turkey and cigarettes. It was very surprising to people because they thought he was a clown. Smartest lawyer I ever met, most well-prepared, most thorough lawyer that you ever saw. And, you know, he'd be busy and he'd be laughing, he'd be spilling ashes all over the floor, and he'd be carrying on, and people say, oh, we won't take him seriously. Well, you know what? He didn't want to run an airline. He loved the practice of law. The reason he ended up running an airline is because he got ticked off. Because those other guys were arrogant. They thought they could keep us out of the air, and the more that they thought, he's always been a football player, a basketball player, the more competitive the Herb got. And so when we went into the air with three airplanes, 195 people, all those other guys all around who had tried to keep us out of the air for 3.5 years in lawsuits and administrative proceedings, they thought, oh, well, we'll just get them out now that, you know, and you know what? If they had left us alone, we probably would have been bankrupt in a year because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Excuse me. We really didn't. But they pushed and they pushed and they pushed, and they did all of these things. Two of them, I love this, so delicious, for the Love Airline, LUV. Two of those airlines were indicted for antitrust violations on Valentine's Day, which I thought was perfect. My point is that those 195 people saw how hard this guy worked and fought for what he believed in. They too adopted the cause to open up the skies of America. And it may sound a little Pollyanna-ish, but guys, we made people's dreams come true. And we did it as much for our employees as we did it for our customers. We have a very unique philosophy at Southwest. We proudly say, and I'm sure you've seen class studies on it, because we have class studies in every university, I think, in the world at this point, on marketing, on business, on culture, on customer service. But our philosophy is, and we show our pyramid, and it's kind of upside down, may be, common for folks to do today, but it sure wasn't common in the 1970s. We show our employees that they are our number one customer. They are at the top. They have the most importance to us as leaders. Our second customer in terms of importance is our passenger. And believe it or not, our third customer is our shareholder. And it's really not rocket science. I don't want to disappoint the dean, but really and truly, if we, as servant leaders, which we are, if we make sure that our employees have a decent work environment, that they have the tools to do their job, that they have respect and dignity, and that we will listen to them and we will respond to them, and that they feel good about coming to work, imagine this, they're going to be happier. And if they're happier, they're going to smile more, they're going to be warmer, they're going to interact with each other first and with our customers second, and the customers are going to be blown away. And I'm not saying we're perfect, and I'm sure that there are a couple of you in the audience who could tell me we're not. But I am telling you, it's very unusual for airline employees to go out socially, non-airline connected activities, and tell people they work at an airline. Because when they do that, usually at least one person with a cocktail in their hand has an airline story, and it's not a good one. Our employees do not experience that. Almost anywhere and everywhere I go, people have their Southwest story, and 99.9% of the time, they're good. It's just, it's wonderful, and it's because we hire good people. So, if those people are good, and if they have a passion for customer service delivery, proactive customer service delivery, which is my number one goal for Southwest Airlines employees, if they're good, excuse me, I've got to get a cough drop.
Would you like a cigarette?
Huh? I start and I can't stop. But if they're good, they smile, they're warm, they're caring, and people notice it because it's so unique in our business. And that means that those passengers come back for more. If they come back for more often enough, then we make a little bit of money, which in our industry today is very hard to do. And our shareholders are happy because they get a decent dividend. Southwest really is all about relationship building. And we have strong relationships. Not only with each other, but with our passengers. I can guarantee you that I am the only former president of any airline that gets the kind of calls that I get. I get calls from business people that will say, I haven't seen Sally Smith, who is a ticket agent, at gate 3 in San Antonio for 2 weeks. Is something wrong? I mean, that's wonderful. Or Sally Smith will call me and say, I read in the paper today, excuse me, that one of my favorite customers is retiring, has had a heart attack, whatever. Can we send something? It goes on and on and on. Those grandmothers that Herb talked about that can now go see their kids, grandkids, 3-4 times a year instead of once a year. And sometimes the son-in-laws don't like that a whole lot. But they write and they tell us, thanks to you, I have watched my children grow up. I get hundreds of letters every year from divorced parents who say, thanks to you, I have watched my children grow up. They live on us. We carry more unaccompanied minors than any other airline out there. Now, part of that is because we do have a lot of short-haul flights, but it's unbelievable, guys. They grow up on us and then they come to work for us. I mean, they know us. They may not know all of our names, but they know us by face, and we know them by face. And we bond with these people. And I have more pen pals than you can imagine. I have them from all over the country. So I really, by the way, I love, and Herb does too, a totally interactive. So just say a couple more things about our people, and then we'd like to really just open it up, because that's where you have the most fun. We spend a disproportionate, so we're told, amount of time in our hiring process. People tell us sometimes that it's a waste. Sometimes they tell us it's inefficient. We've been challenged and questioned by many. Why would you interview 60 people to hire one ramp agent, the guy that throws the bags in Lubbock, Texas? I mean, good grief. Why would you do that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if you hire the wrong person in a small location, 30 people maybe, and it turns out that that's the rotten apple, pretty soon 29 are going to be brought right down with them. Now, you don't have to be perfect to work for us. God knows, Frank Wright worked for us. I mean, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be perfect from the heart. You have to be perfect from the soul. And as mad as I would get at that little creep sometimes, and I have another name for him, but I might offend somebody here, he always gave 110%. And everybody at Southwest does that. So we look for what might be odd things to some. We look for people who don't take themselves too seriously. We want people to take the business seriously, but we want people to be able to laugh at themselves, to admit mistakes. We look for people who are warm, caring, and altruistic. We look for people, regardless of the position that they're applying for, we look for people that will lean toward a customer service or customer conflict resolution versus away from. We look for people, I say this with some trepidation, who like to live on the edge a bit, like Herbie. Now, I compliment that because I'm so conservative on the other end. It's really a wonder that we've survived 41 years together, because he's always living out there on the edge. And, I won't put a quarter in a slot machine in Las Vegas because I figure I work too hard for my money. But a nice balance is good. A little irreverence is not bad. Hope I won't disappoint too many teachers that might be in the audience when I say that I have never really liked the word even professional. And I don't say that with irreverence, but I say it because I think that lots of corporate America has this ridiculous belief that you have one personality when you're away from work, and you have another one when you go to work. So you have your, whatever, warm, personable, kind of laid back. I'm really a great guy, or I'm really a great gal, and personality when you're away from work, and then you get in your car or on your train or on your plane or whatever it is to go to work, and you put this, armor on, and all your personality goes out the door. Well, heck, life is too short for people to do that. And yet I know people that do it every day. We don't want that at Southwest. When we hire somebody, we hire the people because of their individual characteristics that turn us on. Not because they fit a mold. Not because they're going to be robotic, look alike, talk alike, walk alike, quack alike. That is just not what we want. We want individuals. We give our people a lot of freedoms, but I think the neatest freedom that we give to our individual employees is the freedom to be themselves. We encourage it, we empower it. The other thing that we do, and I will shut up, is we empower, and we really do empower. Lots of people say it, but they don't do it. We empower our people, as long as they're not violating the law. We empower our people to make decisions based upon what they are dealing with on an individual situation, no matter what our rules and procedures are. We cannot sit, in an ivory tower at our headquarters building and predict or write a scenario for every single thing that our employees will encounter. We can't do it. So basically, we have a philosophy that if you have really thought about this rule that you're about to break, or a procedure you're about to violate, as long as you have used judgment and you feel in your heart that you are doing the right thing because of the specific situation, that's okay. And if you tell people that, you have to live through, and you have to follow through on it. You have to let them do it. They'll make a few mistakes, but that's okay. If you don't jump all over them, and tell them, oh my gosh, don't ever do that again. Because if you do that, they won't do it a second time. And I'll tell you, I've had many a fight with some of our more old school leaders in the early days about doing that. People thought our employees would give the store away, and they don't. Our employees are owners. They're shareholders, just like our, regular shareholders. At any given time, our employees own 13% of our stock. So they treat our company like it's their own. They are proud owners. They aren't going to give anything away. And they take great pride in being able to make decisions on their own without having to go through 18 layers to get there. So, why don't you come up here and we'll...
Okay, we would like to invite you up to one of the microphones for questions. We are recording this, so we want to capture your questions. So please, this mic is on. Anybody like to come up and ask the first question? And I'll turn on the other mic.
I wonder if you might say something about your early recognition of unions and the role of unions in your company.
Yeah, I can say something about that. No, I don't mean it that way. In any way, shape, or form, because one of the great misapprehensions of American business as a totality and American government as a totality, as Colleen well knows, is that Southwest Airlines has low fares. It's been profitable for 35 consecutive years in an industry that shows a net loss since its inception, right? Never had a furlough. And so we're used to people saying, well, you've got to be a non-union airline because that's all they can think of. Their minds are not flexible enough to encompass the fact that you could be the most heavily unionized airline in the United States of America for the last 30 years
You could be profitable and job secure as long as you don't treat your unions as if they were enemies and start, the sort of Jukes versus Calicax feuds that last for generations. If you could sit in a room bargaining with someone and have him call you a somewhat nasty name, and as soon as you leave, get over it, everything's fine. And that's what Colleen was talking about, because, you have fights in your family, right? Right? Am I correct? Yeah, but you don't disown each other. And that's what the kind of culture that Colleen was talking about produces. And I've got to tell you, in one situation, we had an employee group that was so uneasy because, I won't go into all the legal details of it, but they wound up with no union representation through a union election under the Railway Labor Act. Anyhow, and so we gave them all individual contracts. We said, hey, we'll give you an individual contract and we'll pay for arbitrations, we'll pay for grievances, et cetera, et cetera. And it was kind of funny because professors from law schools would call me, Dean, and they'd say, is that legal? I said, I have no idea. I was waiting for you to tell me whether you could do that or not. But the point is that they got so uneasy. I mean, rumors were flying around that we were firing people, right and left, and that sort of thing, that I finally went to them and I said, I think you ought to unionize because you're a little too insecure not to have a union. And so they did. That's where we come from as far as unions are concerned, as the most heavily unionized airline in the history of the United States airline industry, with, at the same time, an unparalleled record of profitability and job security for our employees. We don't think they're inconsistent.
I would add to that I think that union relationships it's kind of like politics to me. It's all grassroots. We all have a common goal. We all want to do what's right. We are respectful that unions will have certain constituency issues that they simply have to abide by. We understand that. We grant that. So we treat our union. I can tell you this from being a legal secretary. You walk into any other organization and you've got some big fight going on with a union, and you will find that people walk into the room and the union will sit on one side of the table and the company will sit on the other. At Southwest, if you were just visiting for the day and you didn't know any Southwest people, but you knew that there was a big meeting going on with our pilots group, our SWAPA group, and you were just walking down the hall and you saw people walking into our boardroom, if that's where we were having the meeting, you would not be able to tell who were the pilots, unless they were in uniform, and who was management. Because they're hugging, they're shaking hands, they're patting each other on the back, they're telling jokes. Now, when they get inside that door, if they've got a serious argument, because they're sitting side by side, they come to every event we have. I mean, why not? So, they're invited to all of our special events. We celebrate their victories with them. That's another whole area I could get into, but we'll let a question come. But I will talk a bit sometime about how we treat our people so special.
Well, I have one. Boy, there is the fastest writer in this audience, I'll guarantee. I thought as a reporter. But let me sum it up, if I might, Colleen, what you were saying, by telling one incident. I was on a airline commission appointed by the federal government back in the 1990s, and the head at that time of the Teamsters airline division was a witness before this commission. And this is what he said from the witness chair. He said, if every company were like Southwest Airlines, there would be no need for us. This is the head of the Teamsters airline division.
I've lived most of my life in Dallas, so I just want to thank you guys for giving Texas one more thing to be proud about.
Thank you.
My question for you guys is, when I've flown on Southwest, everybody gets on the plane and they load up in 3 to 5 minutes. When I'm stuck flying on another airline, it's a 20 or 30-minute procedure. And I'm curious because I'm a business school student. I think of myself as a pretty open-minded guy. But I never would have thought that not giving people seat assignments would have made it faster. So I'm just curious, how do you guys think about that stuff? And I mean, you've talked a lot about your theory, but taking that into implementation, how do you guys go from this is what we'd like to do and this is how we're going to make it happen and do a gold medal job?
Well, first of all, we make customers believers. And I'm an airport groupie. I sit around and I study people all the time. I mean, I just love to do it. I love to watch people. And nothing gives me a bigger high than going into a city and seeing someone who is obviously on Southwest for the first time and seeing one of our customers explain to that first-time flyer why we do what we do and why it's good for him or her and how it results in, I'm sure her will tell you about my San Diego pen pal, but, you know, everything we've done, we have thought out. And everything that we've done in terms of our operational procedures, we have embraced the thoughts of the people, the users. You know, that's another thing corporate America does. You know, they go out and at a law firm, they go out and they buy a brand new switchboard,
Phone system.
Telephone system, and they don't talk to the receptionist and ask her if it'll work. I mean, God almighty. So we talk to our employees. We talk to our employees in every single position. We say, how would this work better? Our employees know about 10 times better than we do how customers will react. And then, quite frankly, we are so simple in what we do that we basically train our customers. And, I mean, we do. We train them. And they start bragging about it to their friends. Tell them the Mike Shovelin story. I love that. About the bags.
Oh, yeah. No, I wanted to tell another story, Colleen, that I only get this chance once every 10 years, where Colleen lets me tell a story she doesn't want me to tell. But, it's so sad. But this engineer from San Diego, that's the one I wanted to tell because I just love that. And it's a direct response to your question. He wrote and he said, I have flown Southwest Airlines. I hate everything that you do and the way that you do it. You will never again see me on Southwest Airlines. So Colleen sits down and her little fingers start pecking away. She writes very lengthy letters sometimes. And she writes this guy, 2-3 page letter? Singles?
13 pages.
Was it 13 pages? As you can tell, I wasn't lying to you. Well, anyhow, she's brokenhearted. Brokenhearted because she doesn't hear anything back. I mean, 2 months go by. She hasn't heard any response to her masterpiece. I mean, even I detest you would be better than not hearing anything.
Yeah.
You know what happened? He said, I sent 3 of my engineers out to study Southwest Airlines. They've been studying Southwest Airlines, for the last 60 days. You are the most efficient airline by far. I love everything that you do and the way you do it. And you know why? Because now I've realized, what does it produce? Lower fares for my company. And that's what it's all directed towards. Turn the airplane faster. Have assigned seating. People have a little nest. When you're nesting, you tend not to move with such alacrity as when you have to kind of search for your little nest.
You know, open seating is really not all that bad. Now, senior citizens don't particularly like it, and honestly, women usually object to it more than men do. But once people understand it, I mean, think about it. We have we have people that live on our airline because of our high-frequency flights and our cost is right. So we have people that commute to work on us. We have people that form business relationships. We have people that fall in love on us. They court on us. That I get more letters from mothers that say, you know, is there any chance you're going to be in, you know, such and such a city? Because I can't let my child go off to college. I hate to say this in the city since we don't serve Notre Dame, but I mean we don't serve South Bend. But the point is, they know that we will keep them together. Open seating, I can't tell you. We have people that literally have formed long-time business relationships. Herb gets easy 200 invitations a year to weddings because they feel that we're so much of.
I try to hit the receptions.
Yeah. You know, they feel that we're so much a part of their relationship. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable.
Well, and really, when we tested out seating, we found out the business community does not want assigned seating. You know why? Because you're a businessman, businesswoman, and guess what happens? You're assigned a seat a month in advance. May not be the seat you want. Might not be the person you want to sit next to. But, man, you're stuck. You know what they love about Southwest Airlines? You get on that airplane, there's a choice of 20 or 30 or 40 seats that you can sit in. We changed the boarding system. It was the boarding system that people were upset about. They didn't want assigned seating.
They just thought they did.
They thought they did. Yeah.
We straightened them out.
Yeah.
When will you be in South Bend?
Pardon me?
When will you service South Bend?
I'm sorry.
When will you service South Bend?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's in committee. As of the present time. And I'll hope to have an answer for you within the near future. After all, that's what they tell you in Congress.
Well, here's my real question. I'm in healthcare. Tell me what your culture did for safety in your company.
For safety?
Safety, and how your culture affects safety.
Oh, yeah, that's an excellent question because most people don't connect the two. Seriously. That's something, you know, we rarely if ever hear. And first of all, giving people the freedom to act responsibly on their own and not worry about holding an airplane up, for instance. The thing Colleen was talking about, the individual responsibility thing, that's exceedingly helpful. Having basically the same type of airplane is very helpful because everybody's very familiar with it. The cockpits are all the same, and a ramp agency is basically the same airplane all of the time. You know, so if there's something awry, you know, hey, sometimes you have a little context, and all of a sudden you're not sure exactly why, but something seems to be out of place. That's what happens from that standpoint. But basically, it is making safety number one and having your folks know that you really mean that safety is number one. And our people have been absolutely fabulous about that. And they can stop an airplane anytime they want to. They can leave an airplane anytime they want to if they feel fatigued or sick. And it's kind of interesting because years ago, and again, this is relating to the cultural part of it, the FAA wanted us to set up a safety committee. And I begged the FAA not to make us do that. Because I said, you know what a committee is? It's delegation. All our people are individually focused on, concentrated on, and responsible for safety. If you make me set up a committee, they're going to say, oh, that's the committee's responsibility. So the FAA said, okay. And
I actually signed
that's
off.
one reason we have such an excellent safety record.
I actually signed off as the safety officer at Southwest because of my culture committee responsibilities for about 7 years. And, you know, the FAA really kind of, they understand how different we are. And they also understand that every employee, regardless of position, would tell you that safety is the top priority for no matter what they do. If they could work in the finance department.
Yeah, that's changed now. I mean, today. But I just wanted to interlink the two. You know, if you have a really powerful culture that's really focused on something, and if you have 30,000 people that are focused on something, the last thing in the world you want to do is say, from now on, you 7 are responsible for it, and the rest of you can forget about it.
I was hoping you could comment on what your opinion is on the future of the airlines industry with rising oil prices. I know Southwest among...
Are oil prices up?
Well,
I've been out of touch.
What shocked me was Southwest, among other airlines, they signed off on a bill basically prohibiting the betting on futures prices. So I don't know.
Not for us.
Well, exactly. But, do you think this is the goal of like the government to be able to prevent futures prices?
No, what you're referring to is an Air Transport Association effort in the United States Congress to try to curtail the amount of, quote, speculation, unquote, that there might be in the oil futures market. And we're a member of that organization. I'll be honest with you, we sort of went along to get along on that issue. And I've been working for 2 years with a committee in Washington to increase conservation and increase production, both, which we're going to need in the United States of America if we don't want to stop being a hostage of other countries around the world. But so I think basically what's different now is it used to be you'd have a spike. Why? There was either a foreclosure of supply or a threatened foreclosure of supply. So it'd go up for 2 months, and then boom, it would come back down. Today, I think the basic driver is the equivalence between demand and supply, really. To be honest with you.
I have a question about the luggage. In the past year.
About luggage?
Yes.
Did we lose yours?
Yeah, I'm a frequent flyer because my family is in California, and in the past year I have been flying back and forth from Chicago to San Jose. One thing I was wondering if you can start your service from South Bend, because each time I have to travel to Midway Airport. It took me 3 hours. This is one question. Another is really about...
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that. Did you get it, Colleen? The very last part of your question, like the last 6 words, I'm sorry, I missed.
Oh, yes. So I was wondering if you can start your service from South Bend, so I don't need to travel all the way to Chicago Midway Airport.
Service from South Bend. As I said earlier, that's in committee.
Okay. The second question is I know, because each time I fly there and back, I carry very big luggage, even bigger than me. So my question is, I know many company, they started to charge, check
We
baggage.
don't. 2 bags free on Southwest Airlines.
So are you going to charge in the near future for the free baggage? So I know some company, they charge like $25. No free baggage.
2 bags free on Southwest Airlines, no charge for the first 2.
Okay, so no change, right, in the near future?
No change.
Okay, thank you.
The other airlines charge fees. We don't. We're the no-fee airline. If you take a given city pair and you look at the other airlines' fees for calling the reservation center, curbside check-in, checking a bag, being alive, breathing, drinking a can of water, and then you include the fuel surcharges that we don't charge and nobody does in our markets because we won't charge it, it can double your fare. The fees and the fuel surcharge can literally double your fare from $250 to $500. We'll see how, I'm trying to think of a nice diplomatic word, how discerning the American public is in realizing that and understanding how much more they're paying than the fare.
Okay. I actually like the phrase you mentioned before, doing the right thing. I refer to as doing the right thing for the right reason.
Yeah, I can't.
But my question...
This mic?
Yeah.
There's something wrong with that, but it's not coming.
No, I think it's better.
Yeah.
No, it's better.
Hey, that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's doing good now.
I actually like the phrase you mentioned before, doing the right thing. I call it doing the right thing for the right reason. But my question is more to Herb. Doing the right thing for the right reason. Yeah.
I'm just going to come up here close.
My question is more to Herb. I mean, you're famous for locking in the fuel prices. But in looking in the future, what are you doing to secure you against the carbon credit trading and the emission, what is coming up in the future?
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer that because that's a subject I've worked on for a great many years and I'm very actively involved in as of the present time. I don't know whether you could get the question in the back, but it was basically about the fuel situation, where the future is. I'd like to start off by giving you some background and saying that most people in America don't realize, first of all, that commercial airlines produce about 2% of all the air pollution in the world, as opposed to cars, for instance, produce 50%. I just want you to know where you're starting. Secondly, commercial airplanes have been made about 50% more fuel efficient in the last 30 years, unlike any other form of transportation in the United States of America. Thirdly, airlines have no alternative fuel, so you can't use electricity to take off or land an airplane. Fourthly, we really need more fuel-efficient engines and airplanes as quickly as we can get them. And we have been working with the manufacturers, the engine manufacturers and the airframers, to try to get a 15 to 20% improvement in fuel efficiency as quickly as we can get it in new airplanes because now supply and demand are so closely balanced that any little perturbation of the whole system, I mean, a pipeline going out someplace because of an insurrection, the overthrow of a government, somebody waking up one morning and saying, gee, there's going to be revolt, if I don't get more money from oil to feed my people. It's so delicate that I think the United States really needs to decrease its dependence upon oil as a nation through conservation and drilling, both, by the way. We need both. And secondly, I think we need a much more efficient airplane for commercial aviation. Futures, of course, are not the answer forever, because the futures market goes up and down. We were very fortunate. Gary Kelly, our new CEO, made some great decisions in the futures area at the end of the 1990s. But essentially, it's like roulette. I mean, you're putting a lot of chips out there that can go the other way. So we've got to get more efficient, and our country has to get more efficient and less reliant upon oil, quite frankly. I mean, we're a captive. We're a captive in terms of the balance of payments. We're a captive in terms of our foreign policy. We dare not step on the toes of anybody that produces a lot of oil. We're a captive insofar as our defense policy is concerned. Probably, 20% of defense appropriations are defending countries that produce oil. They're friendly in the oil distribution system because we're an addict to oil. And we've rendered our economy, our foreign policy, our defense, and everything else subject to threats. You know, you saw Russia with Europe, natural gas. You now see Russia making overtures to OPEC. It's a powerful weapon in the hands of a producing nation, and it's a spear pointed at the United States. So we better stop using 25% of the world's oil with 3% of its reserves, I think is what it boils down to, really.
Herb and Colleen, I have both a question and a reminder to you, Herb. My question to both of you is that the culture of a company is very dynamic. It changes. You were the founders, and the company was small and struggling at first. Now it's a different team. The company has a record of success. It's much larger. Are you concerned at all about sort of the vitality of that culture as the company grows big and go into another generation? And my reminder to you, as you whispered to me, was on the issue of brilliance and being an entrepreneur.
Oh, can I just, this has...
You can cover the brilliance. I'll cover the
you answered this question. The Dean just reminded me when I was talking about being an entrepreneur. Thank you, Dean, because I would have forgotten again. A little synapse didn't engage this morning. But one thing I didn't mention that the Dean wanted me to mention about being an entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, is that you don't have to be a genius by any means. I mean, just focus. Who was it? Einstein and William James said, the essence of genius is a long attention span. And I just wanted to say to all the students in the audience that anybody can do it. Don't be deterred by saying, oh, my Lord, I have to be Einstein or Newton in order to start a business.
I totally agree with that.
Thanks, Dean.
I also think that you don't, I also want to just make the comment, you don't have to be a genius or highly intelligent to be a good leader either. If you accept the premise that I am a decent leader, because I am not brilliant. I think
you are.
Yeah, right. I would not score off any charts in terms of accomplishments, scholastic or otherwise. But I think that it goes back to if you believe in what you're doing and if you have a cause. And something I meant to say earlier, so I want to just say it right now. Even if you didn't have our mission statement memorized, which is about every 3 feet in every location we have, if you were a Southwest employee or customer, you would know that our mission statement is as simple as following the golden rule. And if every one of our employees holds themselves accountable for doing just that, just treating others like you want to be treated, then you're going to be successfully following our mission statement at all times. And that really brings me to our culture. I think our strategies are changing at Southwest. I think our leadership team is changing in terms of dynamics and personalities and so forth and so on. But if anybody, inside or out, tried to really change our culture and the brand of what we represent as Southwest customer service representatives, there'd be World War III. It wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work because our people wouldn't allow it. And, I get the question a lot about, well, it was great when you had 200 people, but now, now you got 5,000, and, now you got 1,000. And every so many months or years, people would say, well, you can't hold on to it. But it goes right back, and it's pretty simple. If you're hiring good people, and if you're spending as much time on your promotions into leadership ranks as you are on hiring, and then you take our 83% unionized workforce, we go into a brand new city and we're going to have, let's say, 200 people at a station. Well, they're not going to be 200 people that are hired off the street and don't know anything about Southwest Airlines. In a union environment, people get to bid and high seniority wins out. So we carry the culture from one location to another. Now, we will have some local hires, but that's why I've never been real interested in bringing in, 1,000 new people in 1 year, because that's just too much. You've got to do it. I don't think, I really believe, I'm very idealistic, I know that, but I believe that our people would shut down Southwest Airlines as an entity before they would allow anyone to change our basic culture. That's just what I feel.
Hello? Your ad the other day, Tuesday.
Isn't that great?
Absolutely terrific. It was in the journal as a 9/11 anniversary, and clever and two-sided, I guess. And the other thing, our forebears met somewhere in Ireland. My middle name is John Barrett Clark.
All right.
53, by the way, here. We enjoy everything you've done, and I've flown Southwest for maybe 25, 30 years at the expense of my son's airline, American. He's a pilot there. Thank you.
You know what? I was walking down the hall at Southwest Airlines one day, and I guess I had this sort of sappy, simpering little smile on my face. And one of our folks said to me, "Herb, what are you so happy about?" And I said, "My son got a job."
Okay, we have time for one more question. Anyone else have a question?
Hello?
Hello.
I want to know how you keep your prices low. And when we go somewhere, I understand your philosophy, but when we're ready to fly somewhere, we're like, oh man, does Southwest go there? No, they don't. So we have to call Delta, find out it's $700 or $800. And are they fooling the American people to think that they have to charge that much? When in fact you don't, and you profit. I just don't
they're not
understand.
as productive as we are. It's all productivity. Our employees are the highest paid in the industry for the jobs that they do, whether it's our pilots for the types of airplanes they fly, whether it's ramp agents for the type of bags they handle, customer service agents, for ticketing. But of course, they're knocking themselves out on the job at the same time. So you make it up in productivity, and our system fosters productivity. The hub and spoke system is great at generating revenues because you're bringing together people from 30 different cities to fly on a long-haul flight, like from Dallas to Los Angeles. You're bringing them in from, Louisiana, other places in Texas, and so forth and so on. The hub and spoke is a gathering of passengers from a multitude of origins to fly long haul on a given flight to a destination. That's a revenue generator because you have people from so many different cities joining together on that flight. It's also a cost generator because that airplane has to sit there and wait for those other airplanes to arrive from those 30 or 40 cities. And so for a large part of the day, your airport's not active, your airplanes aren't active, your employees aren't active. We're a point-to-point carrier that takes you nonstop from A to B. That means that you're totally reliant upon the passengers in that one city, basically to make that route work. You're not gathering passengers from 30 cities to get on that flight. So, we're cost efficient. That's why we can charge lower fares. They're revenue efficient, but their costs, that's why they have to charge more. They have to get the revenues to cover those higher costs of the hub and spoke system. Hub and spoke, expensive, point to point, nonstop, A to B, much less costly. Especially if you turn your airplanes in 20 or 25 minutes instead of an hour.
Okay, I would like to thank both Herb and Colleen for their time. Thank you so much.
You were right about this, Mike. The comparison.
Southwest is fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I want you to know that that's the longest amount of applause any executives have reached since we've started this series. So some appreciation here.
And listen. And Dean, we understand that it's out of pity.
Okay, remember, if you are getting this course or in this course for credit, turn in your yellow card. 2 weeks from today, we will have our next speaker. Thank you very much. If those 7 people are going to lunch, would please come down here?